it's very, very difficult for some people to do because everyone wants to make money, right? Everyone wants to make the most amount of money possible, but they also don't realize that to make a lot of money, you have to have a good product. And to have a good product means
What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me on the Fabian Baez podcast. Really, really, really excited to have my great friend David Balji on, who is a phenomenal online entrepreneur, and he's worked with a lot of incredibly talented people and also learned from them as well. So I'm really excited to have David on. David, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
yeah, thank you so much for having me here. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So you're a really young guy, and you already have a hell of a track record helping a lot of people out. You've also worked with a lot. You've learned from and worked with a lot of really exceptional, many of them well-known people in the
Mhm.
online space. So just wanted to give you the floor and talk a little bit maybe about your background and how you got started in the space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So it's been quite a journey for the past 7 years. Actually, by next month, it'll be 7 years running my marketing agency, and it was a big struggle coming up to where I am now. I'm still not where I want to be, but from where I was nearly 7 years ago, at roughly 16 years old, it was a very, very interesting journey dealing, with getting bullied for trying to be different and going through like high school, going through college, and now post college graduate, just being able to run the business while being also able to provide value to other people. So I'm sure we'll definitely go ahead and get into it, but it's been a heck of a journey, but it's always a blessing, I will say. So.
Absolutely. So now you mentioned your agency. Could you talk a little bit about specifically what you do and some of the things that you've been able to accomplish for yourself and your clients?
Yeah. So we've, for the past 7 years, have always focused on building acquisition systems for agencies and online coaches. So basically, business owners who have an online program and are looking to build an acquisition system for them that brings in more consistency, more momentum, while also allowing them to understand their marketing on a deeper level. Because the biggest reason why, all these people are getting screwed over or getting scammed by all these agencies or just not seeing a return is because they don't have full control over their business. They don't understand their marketing. They don't study that stuff, nor do they even have the time for it. So that's what we try and emphasize a little bit more, where we're basically in the passenger seat of the business while you're in the driver's seat, right? So that you can have full control, but we're also here to guide you through that, whether that be through coaching, whether through a done for you service. The idea is we instill the level of thinking into you and your business so that you can have full control over it.
Now, David, how did you come about entering this space? Let's backtrack a little bit, because you said, you started literally when you were a kid in high school. So that's really impressive.
Thank
How
you.
did this come about?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was one of the like the nerdy kids. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I was the computer gamer, and I was just always in my room, not going out and doing things. But it it was a weird transition. I jumped away from gaming into just wanting to build some sort of online business. I was also into coding and software development, so I understood how to write in C, C sharp, C++, all that stuff. And it's kind of a blur of how I kind of jumped into it, I'll be honest with you. But when I got into it, I got very, very deep because first I started with promo videos and filming for local businesses. And then I realized it wasn't enough money in there. I was charging a couple $100 per promo video that I would spend days and days upon. And at the time, I did have a business partner, but it wasn't even anything crazy. Probably lasted maybe a couple months. And so then I realized I needed to definitely have a higher income skill, right? There needed to be more to that level. So I started to explore Facebook ads. right? I was part of the Gary Vee stuff. I was part of the Ty Lopez programs where he came out with Here in My Garage. And obviously it was very inspiring to me at the time. And so that's when I started to go into all these different little courses on learning Facebook ads. So that was like the next step. And that's when things actually started to get serious. Now, I was still charging businesses a couple $100 a month here and there, but I mean, I didn't know, you know what I mean? And so I met this one friend, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, I charge 3 times more than you. He was charging 1 to 2,000 a month. And I'm like, how? Like, that's so much money at that time, right? I'm 17, 18 years old.
Right.
And, I'm starting to realize that people charge a lot of money for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly I began to realize that it was just a number at that point, right? And the more value that you provide for your service, the more people are willing to pay. And you'll get a lot less headache when you charge $5,000 to a client versus $500 to a client. And so over the time, I started to go deeper into Facebook ads. I was working with realtors, local businesses, and I just couldn't really find a niche to actually settle down and work with. And so I stumbled upon this one real estate investor who is still a very, very good friend of mine. And he was my first high ticket client where I charged him like $5,000 for a funnel. And then it was like a monthly reoccurring service fee where I would actually market his businesses because he had multiple businesses at the time. And that was where things actually just took off for me because I would spend a lot of time under his belt and learning how he operated his business and his business lessons, and then being able to actually implement the skills that I've been learning from there. So,
Okay.
so ever since that, I mean, it just took off from there. And I think that was about, I want to say 4 years ago from today.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
A couple of things you mentioned there, and I've heard this before, where people talk about it's less stressful to obtain and work with a higher paying client as opposed to a lower paying one. If you could delve a little bit into that, and then also for those that may be watching and don't know, they hear about funnels. What's a funnel? Is that a website? Like what exactly is that? If you can talk about those 2 points.
Yeah, for sure. So the difference between a client that, in terms of marketing, that, will accept like a $500 ticket price or like a $5,000 ticket price. It's a mentality at that point. And so one thing that one of my coaches once taught me, and it just never leaves my head, was if you are a $10,000 a month in revenue CEO or just business owner, and you're trying to get to $50,000 a month, you have to be making decisions as if you are the $50,000 a month business owner, not 10,000, because what got you to 10,000 will not get you to 50,000, right? And so they make decisions very, very differently, right? They invest in the macro instead of pinching pennies or, thinking short-term gains, right? They think of long-term. So if I were to put in this amount of money into ads, what is going to happen? Or, who are the certain people that I can hire, right? It's more wise to invest into a team, right? Let alone a very high skilled team versus someone from overseas or paying, little dollars to save profits. Now, it could be taken out of context, but the idea is that they see the upside potential for the long term of investing because they know that in order to make money, you have to put in money, right? Money flows wherever it goes, right? So, no one ever got great by pinching pennies in a certain context, right?
Mhm.
So that they know the value of what it means to put in money because you get good returns out of that. So that's basically explaining, the breakdown of a 500 or $5,000 client versus a $500 client. Now, in terms of like funnels and marketing and websites and all that stuff, for anyone who doesn't know, a funnel is basically something that brings in a customer who doesn't know you into your community, your world, your personality, your environment. So it takes them from a cold prospect who doesn't know you into someone who's warm and hot and who understands who you are, understands what you sell, and is actually interested in handing you the credit card and actually becoming a paying customer to you. So, the difference between a website versus a funnel, a website has, the about, the contact, it has the services, the products. Whereas generally speaking, a funnel is just a one service or one product focus on one end goal is to get them to become from a cold or warm prospect to a paying customer at the end of the day.
Got it. Got it. In terms of the niche that you serve, you work with mainly coaches, consultants,
Yeah,
and
online service providers,
uh,
online coaches, essentially. Yeah,
agency owners as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit of
Right.
them. Yeah, and
Little-
in my lower ticket product, I have some agency owners as
yeah.
well.
Is there like a really remarkable story that maybe that business owner, that consultant that you started working with and really saw them over a period of time really make some serious gains and really explode their business that you could talk about?
Yeah, there's a few. We can talk about, so I have one agency and then I have one coaching. So for the agency, she knows I talk about it all the time. So her name's Lexi, and she came in as a PR agency. And so basically, press release, she writes articles about entrepreneurs, gets them featured, and then also offers consulting for how to use them in their marketing. So she came in doing about $3,000 per month. Uh, and over the span of almost about a year of working with us in our coaching side, she went from $3,000 a month to $30,000 a month because she had a sales process, but it wasn't the strongest. And she wasn't fully focused on the customer. She was more focused on sale. And it's not because she wanted to make a quick buck. She just didn't really have a nailed down sales process. And so, we came in, we helped her rewatch her game tape a lot, and then gave her a lot more situational awareness to the prospect. And so that allowed her to ask a lot more probing questions, right? To dig deeper into actually figuring out how she can genuinely help these people. And so then they understood that she's actually there to help them. And then she was able to break down how her product actually is better than generating the leads or, posting the content or this. So she was not only able to build momentum with her sales process, but also articulate her product in a very, very competitive market and articulate it differently from all the competition from there.
Mm.
So now she's doing phenomenal. I mean, she was traveling, some spots here and there, but now she's traveling even more, which is awesome. So that's that. But on the coaching side, we had one of our clients, Bobby Castro, and he came in with, no email address or no email list, no funnels or anything. At the time, he was just launching his book called Upsiders. And Bobby's a really, really big guy in his industry, but doesn't have a crazy following at the time. I think he had about 10 or 20,000 Instagram followers. Right now, I believe he has 110 roughly. And what we did was we came in and took him from 0 to 1,500 leads from off of his personal brand, and then he went from 0 to $360,000 in annual recurring revenue, so ARR, for his program, which is about $20,000 a year per person.
Mm.
So within 3 months, he went from 0 to 360K, and the reason was because Bobby is probably one of the most humble people I've ever met. So he shows that inside of his branding, inside of his content. You could just tell right off the bat that he utilizes his personality in a very, very strategic way. That's number one. Number two, what he did was he got very, very, very specific with who he wanted to work with, and he disqualified more than he qualified the people. And this is important because it creates a lot of exclusivity, number one. But number two, you don't just accept everyone into the program. I've been there where I had to take in clients that I knew weren't the best fit, but I had to because I had to keep the business afloat. We've all been there. Um, but Bobby took the risk in that business to disqualify more than he did to qualify, which is, it's very, very difficult for some people to do because everyone wants to make money, right? Everyone wants to make the most amount of money possible, but they also don't realize that to make a lot of money, you have to have a good product. And to have a good product means that you have to have the most ideal customer that you know for a fact that you can actually help, right? So having that strength to be able to qualify and disqualify prospects will take you a very, very long way into building your program.
So much of it, right, is counterintuitive, right? You want to make money, you want to excel, you want to blow up your business, but you can't take everyone on. Not everyone's qualified. You
Yeah.
can't. You also can't be all things to everyone. So these are all things that come into play. That's interesting.
Hmm.
In terms of with the people that you work, actually let's say now you you're looking at someone reaches out to you, and they're an online business owner. What are some things that you see right off the bat, just to help out? Right, we probably have a lot of entrepreneurs that are going to be watching this, and what are some things that you see that right off the bat uh, can help them be more successful in their business, that you can share? Just kind of telltale signs right away that you notice.
Yeah. So I've noticed that people sometimes make it very difficult for someone to become a customer. So I ran this challenge called the 10 looms for 10 days. And looms, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a software, it's a screen recording software. And essentially what you could do is you can message a prospect and say, hey, I noticed a couple things that could be improved on your marketing. Mind if I send a loom over breaking down how to fix it? And so I use that as a outreach mechanism, and we ran a challenge inside of our program called 10 looms for 10 days, where you send 10 looms for 10 days in order to acquire customers. And as I'm doing these researches and prospecting and all that stuff, looking for these people, I noticed that a lot of them make it difficult for someone to become a customer. There's no button. There's no simple button. They just have a very basic website. Some half the websites weren't even working, and these were people who had employees in their business who were in business for quite some time. And you go to their LinkedIn profile and they just don't have any way for me to become a lead, right? So that's the first thing, is that they are neglecting the opportunity to build a relationship with their customers with by just not collecting their email, as simple as it is, right? So if you built some sort of free training or some sort of like email list, right, and give them a good reason to give you their email, you'll have a much easier time converting customers, because in today's day and age, it's all about attention, it's all about personality, right? So the personality is what controls the money. As Dan Kennedy once said, one of the greatest copywriters alive. I had the actual humble experience to have dinner with him at Funnel Hacking Live in October of 2023. And what he said was, it's reputation that controls the money in this economy, right? It's very likely that someone has a very, very, very similar product to what you're currently using or doing right now, right? That you're marketing. And so why would they buy yours over someone else's? Well, the missing ingredient is that it's your personality, it's your reputation. And so people just don't market that enough. But when you have an email list, when you have some sort of way to connect with your audience on a deeper level, you're building that reputation and building that trust with them, so that they say, I'm going to actually work with this guy. And I'll give you an example of how effectively this worked. I was part of a coaching program in 2020. It was great. It lasted maybe 3-4 months. From 2020 to 2022, I didn't join another coaching program. And at the time, I kind of hit a plateau in my business. And I thought, you know what? I've saved up some good amount of cash. I think it's time to jump into another program. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know what was a good program at this point. But I started watching a YouTube video of one of the coaches. And now I know what it's like to close high ticket sales. I know the whole sales process, and I don't throw my money around, right? I understand who I'm working with. I understand who's the fakers, who's the real people, and all that stuff. But as soon as I watched like maybe three of this guy's videos, I automatically knew I wanted to join his program. I loved his personality. I love how simple, straightforward, and efficient he was. I didn't even have a real sales process to join the program. I literally just had a couple questions that said, what exactly are we going to cover? Just want to make sure that this is where I'm trying to get to. This is going to help me for where I'm trying to get to. And I paid it right on the spot. Right. And then I even upgraded into the next program because they over delivered. So I didn't have to go through a sales process, right? I didn't have to have referrals or someone to push me in through it, but I bought because of the videos I watched from this guy. And I understood that I really like his personality. I have a lot of trust built up just from watching 3 videos. And it turned out to be a great investment. So not only are they neglecting the idea that there's no place for prospects to become customers, but they also are not really leveraging their reputation and their personality as much as they can, because not a lot of people see this, but we are in a reputation economy, right? And that's ultimately what's going to build them in their business at the end of the day.
And we can see a lot of the more successful entrepreneurs who are obviously leveraging social media, so forth. Gary V, and so many others.
Hmm.
But Gary Vee does this really well. He shows you his personality. The different things that he's involved in. Like for example, he loves. He had a whole series on the trash talking and
Hmm.
going to the yard sales and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Here's a guy who has invested in some of the biggest companies the world's ever seen, has a massive agency, and he's excited about going to
Oh
some
yeah.
town during the weekend and picking up a toy that's 30 years old for a few
Hmm.
bucks and reselling it. But that's his personality. That's what he enjoys doing, and it's so yeah. It's that's such a great point. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in wanting to do well in business, but you also have to connect with people, and so we have to
Yeah.
show personality. That's really interesting. That makes a lot of sense. Uh,
Yeah.
in terms of when potential clients are reaching out to you, what are some things? Are they like pre-qualifiers that you look for? For them to work with you. Do you work with brand new business owners, or what's the criteria
Yeah.
more or less?
So I actually never really did work with new business owners, just because of the skill set it would take to help people get off the ground. But my program is called Impact Launch, and I would be doing a disservice if I couldn't help people actually get off the ground and build an impact driven program. So what I did was, aside from the current agency that we have right now, I built a smaller coaching program
Yeah.
that's called the Impact Launch Academy, which it helps you go from at minimum like $1,000 a month up to like 10,000 by working on your acquisition system. So it's like a full year's worth of coaching for a very, very discounted price, because it's designed to help you understand your acquisition system so that you could pay for ads, so that you have the cash to actually get you to the level where you want to get to. And inside of there, I talk about a lot of the secrets and a lot of like the thinking process that people don't normally reveal. And the reason I did that is because that's one of the biggest gaps inside of our industry is they all share the same thing but package it differently, but they don't teach you how to think, right? And when you're able to think for yourself, you're able to be innovative and creative. But a lot of people don't do that, and they just tell you what to do. And you'll go into the program and say, "Oh, this is amazing," but it's really just repackaged from everyone else's program. So the way I try and be a little bit different is helping people understand what marketing is from high level, um, so that they can be sustainable for their own business.
Hmm. And your site is impactlaunch.io.
Correct. Yeah.
So, guys, you go ahead and visit it. What can they expect to see on that site when they go?
Yeah, so there'll be some good information on there. Right now, it's just a normal website, but in the future, what we'll probably do is just turn it into a funnel where it'll have just one product, and then you get on the phone. You'll meet me or my sales team or whoever it is, and then we'll probably determine which product would be best for you. Whether depending on where you are in your business, if it's more so for the academy under $10,000 per month or above, because we customize the whole thing for you, right? So we'll give you specific ads that you should run or specific organic outreach that you should do. So it really just depends. But you'll see a ton of case studies on there. You'll see some interviews with our past clients, and then there'll be a couple buttons on how to actually apply for the program and the service.
Now, you have an intimate knowledge of a lot of the industry in terms of sales and marketing. Ballpark, David, how much of that would you say, like the people that are real and the people that are fakers, that are scammers? Is there You know what I mean? And I'm not asking you to name any names, nothing like that,
Yeah,
obviously, but just because you've been around the block now, you're still a young man, but you've seen a lot. You've worked with some incredibly successful people. Maybe just some people that they're really about it, and maybe they just have
mm,
a kind of a scheme going or whatever. But
yeah,
just in general, what would you say percentage of real? I know you may not know everybody, but I get it.
yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I don't know if I have a percentage, but what I will say is there are a lot out there, unfortunately.
A lot of
And there,
scammers, a lot of people
yeah,
who are just yeah.
yeah, but there's also a lot of good people out there too. Um, and the way that I do recommend paying attention to these is it's a lot of the body language. So the real ones who have a good program don't flex their cars and stuff like that. I mean, some do, but for the most part, like being in this industry for so long, you can tell that they don't flex the cars or the houses or anything like that in all of their marketing. Instead, they talk about the results that they've gotten or how they're shifting belief. For example, don't do this to grow your business, do this instead, right? It was effective to use the cars and to use the houses back then. I mean, Ty Lopez, like here in my garage kind of thing, because that's what grabbed attention. But then it got out of hand. And so the people that were BSers would use that as well. And so people didn't know the difference until their bank account got, you know, charged. So there's that. And then, when you get on the sales calls, you can also see how pushy these people are, because if they're pushy, they're desperate for the sale. And if they're desperate for the sale, it rings a bell, right? So you can tell the body language, like the more and more exposure you get to these people and getting on the phone with them and then watching their content, the more you'll see. It's also very, very easy to be exposed these days, right? I mean, it's very, very difficult to hide, right? Because there's so much going on social media that they'll get a lot of exposure, and the second their reputation gets taken, it's done. You know what I mean? So it's very, very difficult for them to kind of restore that, unless it was an honest mistake. If it was an honest mistake and you admit that, then okay, cool. But like you'll see that people will be getting called out. And so my advice to people who want to get into a coaching program is just keep your eye out, like do your research, look them up on Google, look where they are, look them up on social
Trust
media.
pilot, so maybe Trust
It's
Pilot. Does that help?
Trustpilot, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just look at the hashtags under their name, like, just be aware, right? And I'm sure you'll find information, but also take into account not everyone's perfect. So, some people will be refunding programs, you know what I mean? Because it might not be the best fit, and that's okay. Right. But just because one company got 5 refunds and they have 500 customers doesn't mean, you should not go with them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, before and I appreciate your time today. Before we start wrapping it up, I mean, you have an interesting hobbies and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about that, because where are you based, and what are some of the things that you like to do
Oh,
when you're not helping businesses blow up, man?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Took me a second to know what you're talking about exactly, but so I'm a big car guy. I train Muay Thai. I love cars, and I love just being outdoors. I love doing fun stuff with my friends, and so one thing that I love doing, I know you and I have talked about this a lot, is off-roading. It's one of my most favorite things to do in the whole world. A couple of years back, I used to have a friend that, we would take the quads out and just go off-roading on a property that he had. Or we'd go up to Vermont and do the same thing up there, or we'd go shooting. And, he had an outdoor range in Vermont because you can do that over there, but in Jersey, you can't really. So, we would sometimes during our lunch or in high school, we would take the trucks and go off roading. And there's a lot of spots of, where I'm based that you can go through the woods and just have a very, very fun time there. So we still kind of do it here and there. A couple of my buddies do have trucks and we kind of just go out and do that. That's one of my favorite things to do, just because it's just so different from my day to day. That's one thing. I also love traveling. So I'll usually travel maybe 5, 6, 7 times a year. Just depends on, how much of business it is or how much of just vacations. Most of the time it's going to be business, but I try to relax a little bit when I'm there. I travel to Florida a lot just because I do a lot of business there, but I think that's definitely on my top list. But I will say it does get exhausting sometimes when different time zones and then, just going back and forth and then just not having time to rest. So other than that, I just love, again, being outdoors, spending my time with my buddies, because I know my buddies are also big on training for like jujitsu, Muay Thai, and just being outdoors overall. So, it's a very, very big disconnect from the day to day of, what I'm doing here at the office, for
Right.
example.
Right.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Great stuff. What's in store for the future? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to continue working with more business owners? That are more established, maybe hitting certain income targets. If you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So just maintaining momentum with what we have, and definitely over time, within the next couple of years, definitely going to be expanding, building the brand. Of course, that's actually a big focus for this year. We're also hosting an event later in April, so we just kind of came up with the idea. You and I, we've been talking about it. We're getting the funnel design, we're getting the topics and the speakers all set up, and the attendees and all that stuff. So it's more so about like personal branding, about sales, about lead generation. So, if anyone would love to attend in Jersey, you could definitely press the link in my bio. You can get more information about that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll be able to actually host another one later this year, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just focusing on momentum and creating just the best product that I possibly could for my people.
Yeah. Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. So in closing, I always like to ask this. I believe in keeping things in perspective and being appreciative of everything that we have. Because life brings a lot with it. And so when you hear the word gratitude, what's something that comes to mind for you, and what does that mean to you?
It's a good question. I think now when we talk about being thankful and grateful and all that stuff, we always think about the good things that happen to us, but we also shouldn't neglect the challenging things that get thrown our way, because the challenging things are the ones that build us as a character. I'm a big believer in God, and when I ask God to help me become stronger and to help me build character, he doesn't give it to you directly. He gives it to you indirectly by letting you go through things that actually build you as a person. And so, whenever I give advice to my friends, my family, my sister, I always say, number one, it could have been worse, but number two, you become a better person because of that. And that's always something to be grateful for, because you wouldn't have the experience to build your character if you didn't go through the ruts, if you didn't go through the challenges, through, the sadness, through the grief, right? That's the events that build you as a man, as a woman. Like, it just builds your character overall. And when you're thankful for it, you see through the lens, and the obstacle becomes the way, just like the book title, right? Becomes the way. And so you become a whole new person out of that. So when I think of gratitude, I think, not only are you grateful for the difficult or the great things, but also the difficult things that come your way.
Yeah. Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, it's part of our journey. Each person has their journey, and no one is ever out of the womb, through childhood, through everything. Just everything's ascending,
Hmm.
everything's great. You know what I mean? It's just no. It's there's peaks and valleys, so
Yeah.
forth. So yeah, that's all a part of that person's journey. It's true. Um, David, where can people reach you if they want to connect with you? Would it be on besides impactlaunch.io?
Yeah. Usually my Instagram, it's where I'm the most active. So it's just my first and last name, for the username. And
Yeah.
usually that's, yeah, my most active spot.
And Balji, what's the background on that? That's such a unique name. I've never heard of that name.
That's so funny. I get that a lot. It's a Middle Eastern background, so Christian
Okay.
Orthodox. Yeah,
All right. Cool. Cool.
yeah.
So IG, David Balji, at David Balji. Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we'll on IG, on my IG, what you see there, Mr. F. Baez, we'll have information regarding this really special upcoming conference that we're doing April of 2024. So if
Mhm.
you're seeing this after that and you missed it, well, keep an eye out for a future one. So,
Yep.
um, David, anything else you want to share before we close it out?
I think that's all. But thank you so much for having me. It
Yeah.
was a real pleasure.
You got it, man. Thank you, brother, for coming on. I appreciate your time, and always learn something new from you. It's really fascinating what you've accomplished in such a short amount of time. But I know you've put a lot of time into it, and I wish you all the even more incredible success in the future as well.
Thank
So,
you so much.
guys, thank you for tuning into the Fabian Bias podcast. But where you going? Don't go anywhere. Check out this video right here, right? Don't make sure also, I always forget, but I'm gonna have to put a banner. Make sure if you haven't, like and subscribe, enable those notifications because we have a lot of incredibly talented guys coming up here. All right. Appreciate the watch.